Okay, so we're at the top of page 173. We're in a really exciting part. After several years, Ellie is working again. She's doing find. Okay, so top of page 73, a couple lines down. Then the smell faded, not 2 steps away from the fence. I stopped, lifting my nose into the wet air. "What is it?" asked the policeman. "He might have gotten into a car," said Maya, worried. The policeman groaned. I put my nose to the ground and backed up a few feet, and that's when I picked up Jeffrey's scent, up again. The trail was going the other way. Maya's gasped, "She's got it! She's got him!" I ran down the sidewalk, Maya and the policeman behind me. Beside us, water rushed down the gutter and gurgled down a storm drain. Storm drain are those drains you see like in the road that when it rains really hard, it has those thick metal grates and the water goes down into it. I leaped into the street and shoved my nose into the gap where the water was rushing from the street into the drain. The flowing water carried all sorts of smells with it: grass, dirt, garbage, dead leaves, the faint scent of water itself. But I ignored those, concentrating every thought on my nose. If I needed to, I could have wiggled into that drain to follow the trail. But it turned out I didn't need to. I could smell Jeffrey strongly now. He was right in front of me. Although I couldn't see him in the darkness, it was a good place for Jeffrey to hide. But I'd done it. I'd found him. I looked up at Maya. "He's in there? He's in the sewer?" Maya shouted. The policeman pulled out a flashlight off his belt and knelt down beside me in the rushing water to shine the light into the drain. We all saw it at the same time, the pale face of a frightened little boy. "Jeffrey, it's okay. We're going to get you out of there," Maya yelled to him. She knelt in the street, getting her uniform soaking wet as she strained to stretch her arms into the hole far enough to touch him. But the water that was pouring into the drain had pushed Jeffrey back. He was clinging to the far wall. Clinging means he was holding on to the far wall of the sewer, to the edge of a black tunnel that stretched out behind him. The water roared around him, pouring past his body and into the long, dark space, and Maya could not reach him. The sense of terror that was rising off Jeffrey was so strong it was blinding. Here we go again. I whined anxiously. So he whined, kind of like cried. She kind of cried. My finding of Jeffrey wasn't finished. He was there, so close to me, but I couldn't get to him, and neither could Maya. I understood that this find would not truly be done until Jeffrey was out of the water. Water? I'd never really liked it, and here was proof that I'd been right. It might be fun to splash in the ocean where the water only reached my paws, or to jump into Maya's bath, but this water, I knew it was dangerous. It was deadly. It was going to hurt Jeffrey if we didn't finish finding him soon. "How did he get in there?" the policeman shouted. "It's a tight fit, but he must have squeezed in before it was raining. It's really coming down." Maya's voice was full of frustration. A round circle made out of iron, it's a type of heavy metal, was set in the concrete right up above Jeffrey's head. The policeman pried at it with his fingers, trying to pull it up. He couldn't. "I need to get a tire iron." So a tire iron is a tool that they put into the little opening of this big, heavy metal circle, and they put it in and they pry it open, and they can kind of get it up little by little. They're meant to stay down so that children and people can't get in there easily. "Okay, I need to get a tire iron," he bellowed, and handed the flashlight to Maya before he ran off, his feet sloshing in the water. I stayed crouched down by the opening to the drain, right beside Maya. Inside, I could see that Jeffrey was soaking wet and shivering with cold. His jacket was a thin yellow rain slicker with a hood pulled up over his head, but it wasn't doing much good. "Hold on, okay, Jeffrey?" Maya repeated, leaning down so that Jeffrey could see her face. "You hang on. We're going to get you out of there, okay?" Jeffrey didn't answer. His eyes, in the yellow glow from Maya's flashlight, were dull, as if he hadn't heard her or didn't care. I heard a siren wailing, and in less than a minute a patrol car swung around the corner, and braked right beside us, skidding a little on the wet street. The policeman jumped out and ran around to the back of the car. "Fire and rescue are on the way," he shouted. "There's no time," Maya shouted back. "He's slipping into the water." Maya was very afraid. I yawned with my own fear, panting with it. We had to get Jeffrey out of the water. The policeman grabbed something from the trunk and ran back to us with a long, thin rod of iron in one hand. This is the tire iron. "Jeffrey, hang on. Don't let go," Maya yelled. The policeman slipped one end of the metal rod under the edge of the circular plate in the cement, and he leaned on it hard. When Maya jumped up to watch, I went with her. The policeman grunted with the effort. The plate tipped with a crack and then flipped up, falling over onto the sidewalk with a clang that hurt my ears. When the plate had been there, Where the plate had been, there was now a hole that went straight down to the sewer. Jeffrey looked up, startled by it, by the clang of the iron plate falling and the light that streamed down over him. It was only dim gray light, drenched by the rain, but it must have seemed bright to him. A splatter of mud fell onto Jeffrey's cheek. He lifted one hand to wipe it away. "Jeffrey, hang on!" Maya called out. But he only had one hand on the wall now, and one hand was not strong enough. The water pushed hard against him, and he looked up at us for one moment before he was swept away into the tunnel. "Jeffrey!" Maya screamed. I was still on fine, so I didn't hesitate for a moment. I didn't like the look of that black rushing water at all, but it was carrying the boy away. I knew I had to follow. I was terrified. I thought of my dreams of the boy Ethan. He'd sunk down into the water. Then Jacob had done the same thing. They had both needed me to save them. Now Jeffrey needed that too. Could I do it? I plunged head first into the water and was swept along the tunnel after Jeffrey. Okay, so that is the end of 17. There is one chapter left.